Hello and welcome to One Storyteller, where today we are in Chapter 4 of Return of the King, aka the Siege of Gondor. In this chapter, you wouldn't believe it, Gondor gets sieged, and
It's true.
that's basically all that happens. How do you like this chapter? I get the impression from prior comments made that you do like this chapter a little bit.
This is wonderful. This
I'm glad you
is
like people being put in a siege. That's good. That's good.
well, it's wonderful because it's terrible. Okay,
Ah,
which I'll explain. The chapters we've been with so far have been like entirely necessary, but more setup, moving pieces into position. Now we're not. Well, for part of the chapter, we are waiting on Sauron and his armies, but by the end of the chapter, they're definitely here,
mhm.
and it's neat having that piece of the puzzle in place because evil can't be defeated until it's there.
True.
So it's set up here. And so we have eager anticipation for where's Aragorn? Where's Theoden? Which we'll find out in chapter 6.
In chapter 6, yeah, that's fair. Because
Yeah.
chapter 5 is going to do that annoying thing where it doesn't actually,
I I
fulfill
will
what's done.
stand by chapter 5, but I can understand your frustration.
We shall see. I'm,
Yeah, we'll talk about that one later.
yeah.
Anyway, I love all the development we get from Pippin and Denethor and the bits we get to see of Gandalf and Faramir. It's all
Mhm.
very good here. All very, very good.
Yeah. Faramir is cool.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Denethor is stupid for a variety of reasons. Um,
Yeah,
oh well. It's kind of the chapter where
yeah.
this
For
is the
chapter,
Denethor crash out chapter.
yeah, for well, wait till chapter 7.
Well, yeah. I'm sure it
Um,
gets worse.
but this for a chapter called Siege, there's a lot of like really important and thought provoking conversations that happen.
Mhm. Well, there's not
So
much else to do when you're in a siege. Sit and
fair
starve
enough.
while you chat.
Hey, sure enough.
They should make
So
a. Have you ever been to Medieval Times? Like
no,
the restaurant that does the like it has a little tourney of sorts, and you just sit up and watch people play fight each other. It's pretty cool. Imagine if they did one, but it was a siege, and the entertainment was just you sat there and didn't have anything
it's
for
anti-medieval times.
days on end. No, it's definitely medieval times. That's what they did.
Oh no, I mean,
It's the
well,
complete opposite of the restaurant, but
yeah,
it's a
yeah. That's what I'm
completely
trying to say.
true representation of life. Ah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
what a great time. Nobody likes my ideas of fun. What a sad day.
Oh,
Not
it's not
surprising.
fun.
So, main characters in this chapter would be Pippin and Gandalf. Primarily Pippin. Gandalf is kind of doing his own thing. Denethor is a major player. Faramir is also, and this is one chapter where Pippin is finally. This is, I guess, the next day since the last chapter, since chapter 1.
Yeah,
So he is fully in Denethor's service, and he tries to find out what that looks like. And then this chapter covers like 3 or 4 days as Sauron gets
yeah,
over to him.
yeah.
So I'm not exactly sure on all of the specifics of the timeline, but the chapter ends with Rohan's arrival at Minas Tirith, which is 4 or 5
Indeed.
days after Pippin swore his allegiance to Denethor. So it's something like that.
Yeah, exactly. You got it.
Yes, good. I finally got something. Um, Denethor is weird. Okay, so the chapter starts with Pippin being woken up to go into Denethor's service, and kind of a question on what Pippin is even supposed to do. He doesn't. He's not very skilled. He can't really do much. So Denethor ends up hiring him as like the guy to run my errands for me and
Yeah,
stand behind my throne. There's not a real throne, but it's a little throne.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and that's the whole bit. Denethor is sneaky. He seems Pippin. It notes that he seems to know what he's thinking.
Yeah.
And throughout the chapter, you'll have various mentions of Denethor being very aware of things that are going on. And Gandalf will
Yeah.
bring news, and Denethor's like, "Yeah, I know that from last night." And you say, that's curious. And then you just kind of move on because Denethor is pretty bad. Um, what do you have? Where would you start with this chapter? What do you?
Well, I guess I'd start with a couple observations from Pippin.
Mhm.
Is being woken up, and well, we should note now the darkness that we eventually encountered in the previous chapter is here in Gondor.
Yeah.
It's going to get a little bit worse over the course of the chapter, of course. But the unnatural darkness coming out of Mordor is at the gates of Minas Tirith. Pippin, he's making leaps and bounds as being a more grown-up person, but there's still this hobbitness about him, an immature hobbitness about him, where he's like worried about food. Gandalf, or he complains about, why did you bring me here after seeing a tiny breakfast? And Gandalf says, you're here because you got yourself in trouble, so be quiet.
Yeah.
And so that's something he complains about later, if I was hungry, I'd complain about that too. So I'm not trying to just
It's fairly reasonable.
ruin Pippin's reputation. But in comparison to the great troubles and the people around him, it really is small potatoes to complain about that. But anyway.
Yeah. When he gets his new uniform, and when he gets it, he's like, it's uncomfortable, which, yeah, it's a uniform. It's kind of supposed to be.
Yeah.
But that's just his thought. And that's the important thing that stands out to him is, wow, I'm not very comfortable in this situation.
Yeah. It's sort of another example of that is, the dynamic between Denethor and Pippin when they first talked in this chapter is very telling for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And really, they're like so different from each other. But Pippin feels out of place because he's a rustic, comedic hobbit. That's who he's been for most of his life. And Denethor says, well, you can be my courtroom page. Can you sing? Can you do something like that for me? And Pippin's like, I don't think they're suitable, which is very fair.
Mm-hmm.
I would hate being asked to do something like that.
No.
So Pippin feels out of place. And part of that's just where he's from. Part of it is maturity, or at least the maturity he didn't have beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
But we also see a telling thing about Denethor's character is like Boromir. He talks about how Gondor. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. But Pippin says, my songs won't be suitable. Denethor says, why not? We've defended your land for years. Sing me a song from the peace you enjoyed, which is sort of fair. We've already heard Boromir say that same kind of thing with a little less arrogance, I think. But Denethor has pride in Gondor to an unhelpful degree, as you can see from you can see from a comment like that, even though it's technically correct, right? And we're going to see over the course of the chapter, he has pride not just in Gondor, but really in himself. Yeah.
Yeah. That is true. Well, yeah. The first part of that is, well, we can feel like our vigil or our work was not fruitless. So that's fair. Yeah. That's a good idea.
Though it made me think
yeah, and then you're like, oh, well, I see how you really feel about that. Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, the parallels between Denethor and Boromir are thick and fast in this chapter, it seems. Several things that he does that are repeating the mistakes of Boromir, but Boromir did it, and he was genuine because he was kind of dumb a little bit. Like he was a simple man. Like that's what he was. And so when he made a mistake, you're like, yeah, but he actually believed in it. Denethor
Mhm.
is allegedly smarter. I mean, he is smarter. He should be, and yet he's
Yeah.
doing all the same stupid stuff while
Hmm.
saying the same stuff that Boromir said. And it's like, well, aren't you supposed to be so much better than him? Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing? And I
We've
have no
seen this
sympathy for
before, and you
Denethor.
have less excuse.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. I like Boromir. Denethor is stupid,
Yeah.
and that's about where that ends, unfortunately. Somewhere in this, as Pippin is going out to get his uniform, there's like a parallel statement. Pippin is talking about there is observing the darkness, and then it says, "Oh, this is what was happening when Frodo saw the light on the statue," or whatever. So this is still 2 days before, at least the day before, if not 2 days before, um, Frodo goes into Shelob's lair to kind of
Yeah.
put that in
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
So this is one of the later chapters of Two Towers. I don't remember exactly, but that's going to come up when Faramir comes in just a second, because he's going to talk a little bit about the hobbits, and you get a little bit of an update, or at least, well, you get an in-universe update, which we as the readers already have read through, so we already know everything that happened. Thank you,
Yeah.
timing of the books. But yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see
But
that later on.
timing's everything in the first part of Return of the King,
It
and
is.
so it's helpful to see where everything is in relation to each other.
It is.
Yeah.
I feel like you could have spaced it out a little bit more, but okay. Whatever.
Yeah. I'd be interested in talking about that by the end if
Yeah.
we haven't gotten egregiously over.
Yeah. I'm sure by the end of this episode or by the end of the book.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, probably
I
end of the
I will
book for
have a
sure.
better formed opinion by the end of the book,
Okay,
I
sure. We
think.
can wait till then. We can wait till then.
But I also coming to this, I have a lot of the background of having seen the movies a lot, and I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
the way they paced it out is good, because the way they paced it out is generally the time period in which these things happened. And
Hmm.
so that makes sense to kind of, well, especially their justification for kind of dividing things up makes
Hmm.
much more sense from that perspective. In terms of having it read as one book, well, all three books of the Lord of the Rings being just one tome, uh, I'll be better suited to talk about that when
Okay.
we've read through all of it, I think.
Fair enough. Let's do that then.
All right.
I do have to mention,
Mhm.
um, right after Pippin gets his armor, there's this amazing description. I won't call out every one of these things. I haven't been calling out all the amazing descriptions that have jumped out to me, but I have to call this one out.
There are amazing descriptions.
Yeah. But Tolkien says, as the narrator, um, he's just describing how the day goes by for Pippin. So from the sunless dawn until evening, the heavy shadow, deepened. All the hearts in the city were oppressed. Far above the great cloud streamed slowly westward from the black land, devouring light, borne upon a wind of war. But below, the air was still and breathless, as if all the veil of the Anduin waited for the onset of a ruinous storm. That's great. Um, the Because it's a fantasy world and because Sauron has great, magic power, the weather is mirroring uh, the moral stakes, or what is it? The morale
Mhm.
of people, right? So you have darkness coming, despair is growing, and since the army is not here yet, there's a breathlessness, like that calm before a storm,
Mhm.
which is really what most of the chapter is. By the end of it, we do read about the rapid attack. But most of the chapter is people dealing with this horrible feeling.
Yeah. There's a lot of buildup, and then in the last 4 pages of the 25-page chapter, then the army is just there and they're fighting, and then they
Yeah.
break into the gates.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but I guess it works. Pippin has a little bit of an opportunity to get away to chat with Baragond a little bit.
Yes.
Basically, their statement and understanding is that nothing good is happening. They hear the wraith call from a while away from them, well, at
Yeah.
least at the moment. So I don't know how many miles that's covering, but it's a few, I would suppose.
Well, they end up noticing them below where they are.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
in
yeah.
the middle airs, Tolkien says.
Whatever exactly that means. Yes, only 5 of them.
Yeah.
And they're just hanging out for the moment, chasing back Faramir and a few of his people who are retreating from Osgiliath. It seems.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the first time.
Or specifically, we'll find from Caer Andros, which is an island fortress north of Osgiliath on the river.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Is that what it is the first time, or is that what it is the second time? Because there are 2 retreats from Osgiliath.
This is the first one.
Okay.
Is Caer Andros.
Okay. And the second one is from whatever other fortress area. Technically,
from
not
specifically
Osgiliath.
is. Yeah.
I think I understood why. I think I understand why the movie put Faramir's injury as the time he attacked at Osgiliath instead of the second time he retreated from Osgiliath. Because that's a little bit whack to try and explain. And even just having read it, I'm like, well, it's just weird.
I think it makes good sense in the book, but
it does. There's a lot of several extra steps to have to explain as to
exactly.
Wait, why are we doing this a second time?
I think that is a harmless change for the movie to make.
Yeah. Fair enough. Faramir arrives back at the city. Well, Gandalf rides out. He does this a lot in this chapter.
Yeah, it's a good thing Gandalf is here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he apparently his whiteness unlocked the spotlight ability, and so he can just kind of like flashbang the Nazgul and make them run away.
Yeah, he's greater in power than before. Yeah.
Yes. So at least with the normal ones, we'll see at the end of the chapter, he can't exactly just scare off a guy, but we'll get there when we get there. So Gandalf goes this first time, rescues Faramir. Faramir is described as someone who's basically fought against great fear, but got over it. Yeah. And so good for him. And then there are several interesting descriptions from when Pippin sees Faramir and exactly like how he categorizes the man. So Faramir is mentally shaken a little bit, but physically okay. Later on, he's not going to be physically okay. And again, we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah.
What else do you see? Yeah.
I like this sequence of events. It is a bit silly reading what's happening to Faramir through Baragon's commentary, but it works. I just think it's a little funny. But before they notice the Nazgul and their pursuit of Faramir and his men, this is the bit about the armor not fitting you referenced earlier. But really that's a extension of Pippin feeling very out of place in Minas Tirith, which Tolkien has already said several times, but I appreciate being reminded of it. I think it's important. There's one idea. In some other time and place, Pippin might have been pleased about his new armor.
Yeah.
And that's like a childlike ambition, right? It's like, I get to be a soldier. It's so great. But I like Tolkien spending time on that idea, even though it's just a little bit. It's like, it's not really the most enviable thing, especially when you are out of place for it. And maybe you should be here. Pippin ends up taking some wonderful initiative by the end of the chapter.
Yes.
But it's hard feeling trapped, and it's hard being in danger in this way. And so the fact that he describes the armor and helmet as burdensome is just kind of an extension of that larger feeling of being out of place. Yeah. Which is probably why he admires Faramir so much. Is Faramir's choosing to contribute the most that he possibly can, even in a pretty bad situation.
Yeah. Yeah, and Faramir is this weird... Well, when Pippin sees him, he's described as like this weird jumble of impressive traits from all the other impressive people Pippin's ever known.
Yeah,
He's got the look of Boromir, and Boromir was a valiant man, yeah, simple-minded but valiant. He's got the nobility of Aragorn, but not to such an extreme degree, and
yeah,
so
yeah,
he's not quite as kingly, but maybe it's more of Theoden's relatability than Aragorn's just straight up nobility. Um, he's got the wisdom and sadness of the elder race, which I assume is the elves.
yeah.
So he's very much a kind of Gandalf figure. He's not
Mm.
described as a Gandalf figure, but he is, and then you even see that later on in the chapter with things that Denethor says to him. I think actually in this right next conversation. So
Yep. Yeah.
it's curious. Pippin is just a simple man, but he is using his limited experience, and he's like, well, Faramir kind of ticks all the boxes. He's pretty cool.
Yeah,
There's a reason
exactly.
people love him.
Yeah.
All right. So Faramir gets back to town. He's pretty tired, but he's a war captain, so he goes to advise or at least update Denethor on what's been going on. And basically, Denethor doesn't care about most of it. Most of the war stuff and how our army is doing, Denethor knows it all already from
Exactly.
some strange source.
Yeah.
I wonder what it could be. There are, as Faramir sees Pippin, he says, I've seen an awful lot of halflings around right about now. And so he
He
does end
does.
up giving seemingly just a full report on Frodo and Sam,
Yeah.
and as well as the fact that they have the ring with them, or
I
at
don't think
least,
he does say that.
well, the thing that Denethor takes away from it is you have given the tool right into the hands of the enemy, and now he's claimed it, and now he's coming after us. I would have
Yeah.
kept it hidden away. And so Denethor, well, yes, I don't think Faramir specifically mentioned the ring, but Denethor is able to glean a lot of information from
Yeah. I think
things that
that's what
aren't
happened.
stated.
I think so. Yeah.
So it may be that he's already heard some of those rumors or seen some things from some source, and is able to kind of figure out that information. So again, another reminder: Frodo has not gotten to Shelob's lair yet. He would
No.
be. It's been 2 days since Faramir saw him at this point, and this is the next day since the chapter started, or something like that. So that's where Frodo has been dropped off. He's about to start climbing the stair, is the point
Yeah.
he's reached, but he's no further than that. Um, and so there's kind of a note that is the darkness that is coming is not because Sauron got the ring and now can conquer Middle Earth. It's in spite of Sauron not having the ring, which
Yes.
Gandalf will mention later on is a sign of hope that something's caused Sauron to overreact.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
do you have anything on what Faramir reports, but then especially on how Denethor handles
Oh.
himself?
Oh yes.
It's bad.
This is where we're seeing a lot of reasons. Denethor is ratting himself out. He is condemning himself here.
Mm-hmm.
Denethor just listens, and like if you construct the scene in your mind, it's like you can imagine Denethor's like thinly veiled
Hostility.
anger
Yeah.
at Faramir. We already see that Denethor feels threatened by Gandalf, but has the diplomacy to act like he's just dismissive of Gandalf.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that same sort of jealousy toward Faramir. What I mean is like Faramir says about the best thing he can do, which is, I hope I have not done ill, speaking specifically about the transfer of most of his men to Osgiliath.
Mm-hmm.
And Denethor just kind of has a mini explosion. He's like, oh yeah, now you care what I think? And at first he says, you're groveling. You shouldn't care what I think. Also, you never care what I think.
No.
I think that wild goalpost moving shows his own like jealousy and bitterness toward Faramir. And it's we'll discuss it later. I don't want to jump ahead too much, but a big part of it is Faramir's choice with the ring
Mhm.
and just the nobility that motivated that in the first place.
Yeah. Well, there's is that isn't that in the same conversation
Yeah, I
as
can
well?
keep
Because
talking about it. Yeah,
yeah, by all means, go. I mean, we're not doing a strict paragraph by paragraph. It's
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of a
All right,
thought
yeah,
for thought
I'll talk about the whole
translation.
thing then.
We are the
Yeah, so
message.
Denethor definitely. I think despise is like the best word. Like not like in a very aggressive sort of way. It's all passive aggressive for the most part.
Hmm.
But he certainly despises Faramir. It's just so sad. It's like one of the biggest tragedies in the the whole series. Um, it's Faramir. Oh, what is it? Faramir says, "Well, I wish I'd known your counsel before a choice. This being about the ring, whether Faramir said it or Denethor just put it together. Denethor knows at this point. Everyone can tell he does.
Yeah.
And Denethor says, "Do you really think so? I don't think that would have changed your judgment. I think Denethor is right there."
Yeah.
Um, Faramir loves and respects his father, but he doesn't behave like his father.
Yeah. Well, it's basically a statement of, if you had wanted me to do this, you should have just straight up told me so. But
Yeah,
you gave me the authority to make decisions like this, and then as
yeah,
soon as I make a decision you don't like, you're trying to, disparage
yeah.
my authority
The
with this?
the whole interaction is exposing, even a little subtly, perhaps exposing Denethor's hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Um,
Don't give the man freedom if you're not going to
yeah,
respect his freedom. If you're not going to let him make his own choices.
yeah, and it's the very thing Denethor pretended to dislike about Faramir
Hmm.
is that he was asking for his approval.
Yep.
Well, that's not the real problem. It's just not. And this is especially bad for Denethor is when he says, "Ever you desire to appear lordly and generous as kings of old." Well, especially in Middle Earth, that's like one of the best things you can do.
Yeah.
And the fact that Denethor doesn't like that says a lot about him.
Hmm.
Denethor says, "In desperate hours, gentleness may be repaid with death." And I don't want to like keep talking too much, but in the Two Towers, Faramir was thinking very carefully. Remember when he's talking with Frodo and Sam about, and even about what to do with Smeagol in the ring, he thinks very carefully about justice and mercy.
Yep.
That's one of the big things there. It's one of the lessons that Sam learns from Faramir. So Faramir isn't being flippant with gentleness. Like you can tell if anyone's thinking a lot about the consequences of mercy, it's Faramir.
Hmm.
And so this is also not fair of Denethor. Denethor has become so pragmatic and prideful that he can't see the benefit in gentleness and mercy.
Yeah.
And so Faramir says, "So be it," which Denethor doesn't like.
Hmm. Yeah. Two things on that.
Yeah.
One is it's curious that you relate this back. Well, it's fitting that you relate this back to the conversation in the Two Towers. Denethor says down here a couple paragraphs later,
Yeah.
"Yes, I wish that Boromir was alive and
Oh
you were
my
dead,"
goodness.
which is wild. That's a
Yeah.
wild thing to say. But then he says Boromir would have brought me a mighty gift, which is the line that the movie adapts to what Faramir said back with Frodo and Sam, which
Yeah.
is tell my father that Faramir sends a mighty gift or whatever. And so
Yeah.
it's interesting with this context of, hey, this is what I wanted you to do. And it's,
Yeah.
well, when Faramir was thinking along the lines of what his father wanted him to do, that's the very thing he says in the movie. So cool
Yeah.
adaptation moment.
Sure. Sure.
Um, the other thing is, you desire to appear lordly and generous as a king of old, gracious, gentle. That may well befit one of the high race if he sits in power and peace, but in desperate hours, gentleness may be repaid with death. In other words, if your enemy is bad enough, you should abandon all of your morals and get down in the dirt with them,
That's what he's saying.
which
Yeah.
is not a good principle to hold, I don't think.
No.
And so it's a part of why Denethor is the way he is he
Yeah.
has abandoned all hope of being good, and he's just kind of he's just like Sauron. And so it's
Yeah.
interesting. There's a
He's
line.
He's on the same path of Saruman. Yeah.
Yeah, he's in the Saruman line. His statement is, "I would have taken the ring, and hidden it away in the dark," which is just like what Gollum did. And so he's got the Gollum strat going on. He says, "If the ring was brought to me, I could handle it," which is just what Boromir said. So he's got the Boromir strat going on. And then later on, as the enemy, as Sauron is kind of closing in, and Faramir has gone out again to fight, to try and hold Osgiliath, Denethor says something that basically compares himself to Sauron as this like rival lord, and Sauron's going to come and fight me on my turf, and then whatever it is, I forget the specific line.
Pippin is afraid of Sauron himself coming to Minas Tirith.
Yep.
Which, since he's not a giant floating eyeball, he could do, theoretically. Yeah. But Denethor says, no, he leads from the back, like I do. Even though I could fight, look, I got a sword.
So do all great lords, by the way, using other people. Why else do I sit in my tower and think? And so Denethor
I think you're right that is Tolkien is giving us another slight against him, because Gandalf ends up becoming the leader, and he's always out in the field doing something. Faramir is always out in the field doing something. And Aragorn, too, who's going to be king, is always out doing something.
Yeah. It's curious if Faramir is the compilation of everything good that we have seen in the series, Denethor is the compilation of every bad trait collected from all the villains of the series, kind of compiled into one.
But it's interesting, though, because I've made this comparison before, but if you look at Theoden, who also had a really rough start, and from Tolkien's perspective, at least, some of like Tolkien or Theoden's redemption is still in the balance.
Yeah.
But Theoden, he had a ton of despair because of the death of his son. It's like, okay, that's similar here. You get the sense Denethor had been having a rough time for a while, but things have got worse now that Boromir's died. Theoden was in despair, and so he just closed the doors and hid in the darkness. Denethor hasn't technically done that, not to the same extent, but instead of abandoning all leadership like Theoden does, I think this conversation reveals he's abandoned his principles.
Yeah.
And if you boil it down even more, he's abandoned hope. It's like you said earlier, he wants to fight Sauron on his own terms. He berates Gandalf and Faramir for trusting in the plan to destroy the ring. He cannot imagine that. It's the stupidest thing ever.
Yeah.
Boromir thought it was stupid. Denethor is dialed up to 11. He has no patience for that. And it's because the whole quest of Frodo and the ring, everyone who has wisdom, when they explain it, the Gandalf especially explains it several times, that comes from a place of faith and like the will of God, basically.
Yeah.
He says, if we do something selfless with this horrible temptation and try to destroy it for ourselves and people who come after us, we have to have faith that best thing will work out. And it might not, but it's the best thing we can do. Like, that's what their argument boils down to. And Denethor just cannot understand that, which says a lot about him.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons given to why it might work is because Sauron would never expect so stupid a thing, and then Denethor's like, man, this is
I
so
never
stupid a
expect this.
thing. It's
Right.
he's just
That's a
Sauron
great
again.
point. That's a great point.
So yeah,
Yeah.
he is very much. He is nowhere near as powerful as Sauron, but he is kind of ruling in the same way.
Yeah.
So it is curious to look at, especially Theoden and Denethor. I mean, Denethor is doing a lot of work in terms of
Yeah.
like character, but none of it's good. But it's all fantastic. If you know what I
Yeah.
mean. It's almost a question of like Theoden and Denethor are very much the same because both of them did abandon hope and they sit up in their tower at night by themselves.
Yeah.
It's just that Theoden was an absentee king who just kind of quit doing everything, and
Yeah.
Denethor is an active king, sort of steward, but active king who decided to drag people down the wrong path. And so it's like
Yes.
neither of those is good, but I would
Mhm.
almost prefer not doing anything to actively going in not a good direction. And
I think
that's
that is
kind
the
of,
right thing. Yeah.
I think that's what Denethor represents,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
That's right.
Because ultimately, even in this chapter, things get bad enough that Denethor does stop what he's doing, but he still keeps
Yeah.
going down the wrong path and dragging people along with him. And it
Yeah.
doesn't
Ooh.
end well.
I like that. I like that observation. Yeah.
I like it too. It just kind of popped into my head.
Yeah. I have one more comparison to make,
Sure,
even though we've talked a lot about this.
by
Is
all means. This is like a big concern for the chapter, so we can go
it
through a lot of the
is.
rest
I
of
think
it.
it's worth talking about.
Hmm.
Well, there's this horrible line. Faramir finally uh risks being a little disrespectful to challenge Denethor after Denethor says, "I wish you were dead and Boromir was alive,"
Yeah.
which is crazy. And Faramir says, "Hey, remember the reason I didn't go is because you decided you wanted to send Boromir.
Hmm.
By the way, that's your fault."
Yeah.
And
The
there's
one,
two things I want to say
the
there.
one time I let your wisdom win out, you see what happened. This is the biggest regret of your life. But okay, sure.
Yeah, which crazy thing to say, but so based. Man, it's just such a sad relationship. It's all Denethor's fault.
Hmm.
I have two things to say here. One is, I think this betrays, like, here in a little bit, Denethor will say to Gandalf, "You didn't find Boromir so easy to control because Boromir didn't want to take the ring."
Mhm.
Well, that betrays how Denethor thinks about his sons,
Yeah.
unfortunately, is that he found Boromir easier to control than Faramir. And so he thinks Gandalf was trying to do the same thing, which Gandalf wasn't. The other thing, what does he say? Denethor says, in response to Faramir saying, "This is your fault that Boromir's dead. Stir not the bitterness in the cup I have mixed for myself." Um, it's like very transparent here, but like it's a problem lots of people have is like, I'm just being sad. Let me, people don't say it, but let me wallow, let me be bitter.
Yeah.
And it was like sadness is something to like work through. But Denethor straight up admits like bitterness is a choice. Like, I've mixed this for myself. He doesn't have hope. He's choosing this. And you could say, well, he has tons of excuses for it, but he's still choosing it, you know?
Yeah. Well,
And oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
he's just making his excuses, and he's ragging on Faramir for stuff Faramir can't control. And then when Faramir
Yeah.
says, "Look, there's something you can't control," Denethor says, "Well, you're not allowed to bring that up
Yeah.
because that
Yeah.
one's sensitive to me, and I can't be affected by that in the same way." So
Yeah. The final part in the same paragraph, the final line there, and this stir not the bitterness in the cup I've mixed for myself. He says, "Would it were not so," which is that Boromir was still alive and even that he had the ring, because he said, "Would that this thing had come to me," which is a like horrible inversion of what Frodo says. Remember, he says, "Would that this thing had never come to me." Sort of in the same line of, "I wish that I was in better times." That notably Theoden also says.
Yep.
Denethor has the practicality not to waste time wishing he was in different times, sort of.
Yeah.
Except not really, because he says, I really wish I had the ring. I really wish I still had Boromir.
Yeah.
Even though this shows like his great ambition and pride, it's still that temptation of wishing you had control over fate
Yeah.
that Frodo and Theoden both get over, and Denethor does not get over.
Yeah. Well, in some ways, I think Denethor is he's the epitome of the bad version of men being able to shelve things and move on.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that makes men so interesting is a lot of times, if you're having a bad day, you could just kind of ignore that and work past it and just do something else and get over it in that way. The good thing is you still get the work done. And so, if you are in a battle, you can still fight the war, even though terrible things are happening around you, because you're able to shelve it and move on. The bad thing is you leave problems unaddressed, or the potential bad thing is you might not actually drill down and figure out what's wrong. And Denethor is, because there are moments where he's like, he is depressed about this, but he says, well, we don't have time to say what if, because this is what happens.
Yeah.
The ring is
That,
gone. We
that's
have
his
to,
big dodge when Gandalf really challenges him. He said, if you had,
yeah,
like, he's uncomfortable, but to your point, he's not wrestling with that.
yeah. Which to some extent is good, because that allows you to defend your city as it is, instead of just kind of giving up and saying, well, if I had a better situation, I could do this, but I don't. But at the same time, Denethor then goes on to pointedly not defend his city. And so he's not even getting the benefits of pushing off those thoughts. He is dwelling on those, like they're rotting him away from the inside, but he doesn't even think about it.
Yeah. Tolkien shows us through this chapter that you can only put stuff off for so long before it catches up with you.
Yeah. And when it hits like a truck.
Yeah.
which is where Denethor's whole character is going in the end of this chapter. Anything else on Denethor right here? I think we've covered basically him up until the whole burning thing, but
this is the last thing I have, I promise. Which is
definitely
Gandalf and Gandalf and Denethor begin arguing. It's sort of like what Denethor said to Pippin earlier. Is like, we've defended you, even though we don't get any thanks. Denethor is thinking mostly about Gondor, which is actually mostly about himself.
Yep.
And Gandalf points out that's why Theoden can pretend he'd hide the ring, is because a ringless Sauron might not be able to conquer Minas Tirith. Debatable, as we see by the end of the chapter. Yeah. But he can definitely conquer everything else. Yeah. But Denethor isn't thinking about other people so much. Mm-hmm. And I'll come back to this idea because Tolkien does by the end of things, seeing how the Witch King leads his armies. But Gandalf says, there are other men and other lives. And as for me, I pity even Sauron's slaves. And that's a big reason why Gandalf is willing to trust in this crazy plan of destroying the ring. Yeah. Is because that will actually destroy Sauron's power. That's such a good thing. Gandalf is willing to risk people he cares about, like Frodo, specifically, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Is it better to sit back and wait? Or is it better to actually try and end the evil, even if that has potential to increase the evil? Well, at least in a situation like Sauron, he's not getting any weaker. He's not going to die off. And so it's just, do we try to get rid of him, or do we not? And so that's their decision. You can see the positives and negatives, because Denethor is very much kind of live and let live personality, and you see where that goes, which is nowhere good, is what the conclusion is.
Yeah.
There is a brief conversation after this happens. Pippin and Gandalf both leave Denethor for the moment. And Gandalf expresses his worry, but there's also the kind of note of hope where Sauron is rushing, and then Gandalf even says, well, Pippin, maybe actually what you did wasn't so bad. Maybe that actually helped out with you getting in the stone and antagonizing Sauron, because Sauron is jumping the gun at something.
Yeah.
Gandalf isn't sure exactly what. Two possibilities are brought up. One is Pippin and his interference with the rock. The other is Aragorn may have used the rock, which is a little bit prescient, but also probably
It's
completely
Gandalf.
fair.
Yeah.
Gandalf is aware that he might, and aware that probably at some point Aragorn inevitably would have, because I mean you got to challenge the enemy at some point, and so maybe he's piecing those things together, that some combination of things has goaded Sauron into a hasty action, and just like well, it allows Frodo and Sam to get through Mordor without as much opposition because Sauron is distracted elsewhere. There's a very literal representation of that in the movie a little bit later on. A little bit silly, yeah,
Yeah.
but it's that kind of theory that they're running with, which is ultimately why Aragorn throws himself at the gate, at least in the movie. And I don't know about the book, but
Yeah.
we'll read
Also in
here,
the
probably.
Yeah.
So, next day, Faramir's had a little bit of rest. Denethor takes counsel. Everybody that he's counseling with says they should sit in the city and wait for Sauron to attack, including Faramir. And Denethor says, well, I really want Osgiliath held. If only there were a war captain who would go out and do it for me.
That's like one of the worst things he says.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly striking off the back of the last conversation where Faramir said, like, I took your advice once and Boromir died. Well, now Faramir takes his advice a second time and does what Denethor wants instead of what everyone else is saying. And Faramir's going to die because of this, essentially. I mean, he's going to get sniped by a ringwraith a little bit later in the chapter, or whatever it is. So, yeah, it turns out Denethor's not as smart as he thinks he is. But this is Faramir's honor your father and mother passage, even at his own expense, which is a painful thing to consider. So Denethor is really setting himself and his army up for failure. I mean, there's no real point to fighting in Osgiliath anyway. The city is lost, and yet he pushes his son to go and do it.
Yeah, I think it's neat. It feels like a military meeting. Is like, that's not like the most important part of it, but they're talking soundly about strategies. Like, technically, Denethor could be right. It's like, we have a defensive position and we can hurt them a lot, right? But Faramir says they have so many soldiers that any achievable trade is not going to be worth it.
We can trade 10 for 1 and Sauron's still happy about it.
Yeah.
It's what
terrible. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they don't even have enough men to hold their city walls in Minas Tirith. And then Denethor is like, take a bunch of men and go out to Osgiliath and go fight and die there. So it is... I understand the theory, but it's also pretty stupid. And
I wonder if this is like a strategy visualization of what Denethor's trying to do with his mind. Is like, man, how can I articulate this? It's like, he knows evil and hardship are coming, but he keeps that at arm's length unless it's convenient for him.
Yeah.
Perhaps. And now it's the end of things. Things are coming down to the wire, and maybe he's trying to forestall it as long as possible.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There is something to be said, because a lot of this chapter, one of the motifs in the chapter is we're waiting for Rohan to arrive. We don't know when it will be. It'll happen eventually, but we don't know. And so it's kind of delay the enemy as long as possible. So from that perspective, it makes sense. At the same time, at the war meeting, it's brought up Osgiliath is not the only crossing. There are several that the orcs are all going to be using above and below Osgiliath and through Osgiliath and through a couple of the other forts that exist. And so even if you hold the one point, the army just comes around and attacks you from the back. I mean, it's not actually going to delay them worth anything. So it's a good theory in a vacuum, but Denethor doesn't want to consider the other possibilities and what will eventually happen.
Yeah.
A little bit stupid, is he?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It doesn't take long after
no.
this that we read Faramir stays out there
Mhm.
with the rear guard,
Yep.
which, man, Faramir's a great guy.
Cool dude.
So he's holding things as long as possible, even while Gandalf is escorting wagons of wounded men from Osgiliath and other places.
Yep.
It's before Faramir gets back that's Ingold, who was like a wall guard that we met in the first chapter, comes back into Minas Tirith. The outer walls around the Pelennor have been destroyed, so Faramir's definitely forced to retreat. Then,
Yep.
he's going to get surrounded, right?
Yeah. And one of the reasons for so quick a route, and even as much as damage as they're doing, the reason the orcs keep coming is there is Big Wraith, we call him.
Yes.
Oh, we call him that. Oh, that's good. I'm glad that got through. He is winning Osgiliath. I assume this is just straight up the Witch King.
Yes, it is. Certainly.
And he's just kind of sitting there and yelling at the orcs, and the orcs are going out to die, but ultimately push Gondor back. And so Big Wraith is pushing orcs towards Minas Tirith consistently, and there's just nothing you can do. What can men do against such reckless hate, as they say?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, unfortunately, that is the situation. There is a bit where Gandalf rallies some of the Gondor horsemen, and Denethor even kind of authorizes that, so that's cool. Denethor actually does a little
I already
something.
planned to do this, but go ahead.
But they ride out to rescue Faramir and some of the others, and they end up finding Faramir stricken down on the field with some kind of dart from above, which is probably not a good indication if Frodo and his wound had anything to say about it all the way back in Fellowship.
Well,
I assume it's a Nazgul thing.
It's sort of
not just a
confusing here.
Yeah.
I think it's a Haradrim arrow,
Okay.
actually.
Cool.
I think it's sort of weird here, but later it's referred to like it's one of their arrows, not from the Nazgul.
Cool. There's some dart that puts poison in them.
I might be wrong.
Yeah. Well, I guess the poison, there's allegedly poison. That may also be an overstatement. I mean, if you get hit with an arrow, the wound's pretty open. It can get infected. That itself is kind of a poison. So Faramir gets hit with something, and he's not looking too hot as he gets back home. That's the main. Well, it's not even the main problem, but that's kind of the problem that's thrown to the front of the chapter as we near the close here. I say near the close. There's still quite a bit that happens. Since Faramir and all his men are pushed back, the siege begins. Did you have something that you wanted to go back and say about that before we get to the siege? Did I cover it?
Only that we see just passing mention of this guy, but Imrahil, the prince of Dol Amroth, is leading the horsemen, and Gandalf also comes out to make sure the Nazgul don't mess them up.
Yep.
So we've got some people actually acting like leaders here.
Yeah. And it's interesting. It's Prince Imrahil that does it. Where Steward Denethor, allegedly Little King Denethor, is sitting back and doing nothing. Imrahil is cool. When I played the Lord of the Rings card game, I had a purple deck, and Prince Imrahil was one of my heroes.
Yeah, he's a very good side character, and we'll see more of him later.
Very cool. I look forward to it. Siege begins. The Rohirrim haven't gotten in yet, and there's mention that they can't get in.
Yes.
Because some human dwarf-looking guys with axes and beards, probably why they look like dwarves.
Easterlings.
That's Easterlings? Okay, short people.
Well, they don't say they're short.
They're broad like dwarves, and they have beards and axes. I assumed that they were short. Does it not say that they're
Maybe.
short?
I don't think so.
The point is they block off the road, and then the Rohirrim can't come. Not tall, but broad and grim. Yeah,
Oh, I
the
see.
little
I see.
statement there. So those guys come in, and they're blocking off Rohan, so Rohan can't come and help. The orcs dig a bunch of trenches. Trench warfare is, it's what Tolkien knew, and so I guess he puts it
Yeah.
in there.
Well, one of the big
Get the
things
muskets.
we've seen mentioned before is like Mordor doesn't have a lot of horsemen.
Yeah.
And so trenches are pretty good insurance against that, something like the sortie that helped Faramir make the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool. And in Rings of Power, I seem to remember that the orcs dug trenches. Maybe the writers really knew what they were talking about.
Impossible.
They didn't, but maybe they did. They set up catapults, or catapults of some sort, maybe trebuchet, but big siege weapons that are able to throw rocks and
Ooh,
sometimes.
let me back up really quickly.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Yeah. It says Imrahil brings Faramir's sickly body to Denethor. And Denethor will have a little bit more to say about this later on. But Tolkien leaves us with the line, Faramir's there. Denethor sits down on the floor beside him without speaking. And his face is more death-like than his son's. It's like everything's catching up now. As he just had such short-sighted rivalry, arrogance, and jealousy, he's lost what he actually forgot he cared about. Or at least is in great danger of losing.
Yeah. Not lost, which is very significant, but Denethor doesn't consider that.
Yeah.
Which is also very significant, unfortunately.
When everything is in the balance. And, well, I'll talk about this more just about the chapter as a whole here later on. But yeah, when everything's in the balance and seems to be tending toward darkness, it's easier to give up.
Yeah.
It's like, this is already hard enough. Yeah.
But he would rather, well, that's just what it's all come to, is he gives up on the floor, and we'll see him a little bit later on giving up more actively.
Sorry, but catapults, yes.
Orcs set up catapults to throw rocks and fiery rocks and also heads into Minas Tirith. Minas Tirith just kind of has to sit and take it because they haven't thought to build catapults of their own for some reason.
I don't know. That might be a fair explanation.
Yeah, well,
it's also harder to have like wall-mounted siege weapons.
Yeah, it would just extend your range. They would not be very useful close up. They would just be useful further out of bow shot. But the thing that the orcs do is they set up outside of bow shot so that they can fire into the city. Yeah. So it is a little bit silly. I like that the movie has catapults on the walls, but also, limited usefulness. They were very useful in that one situation.
Yeah, I wonder, maybe I'm trying to over-explain things too much, but I wonder if like being on a wall would limit their size and range.
It depends on how big the wall is. I think the major concern is catapults are much more effective when you fire them where they can roll. And when you're up so high, because you're throwing a big rock and you want the rock to hit and then like roll through scores of people. So you want it to kind of fire horizontally, but when you are up so high, then the arc of the catapult generally would put it, the rock just coming straight down, which is what it does in Return of the King, which is why Gothmog can just kind of step out of the way of the rock and it just hits the ground and sits there. Like, that's what you don't want a catapult to do. So limited usefulness, absolutely. Better than just not being able to do anything and getting fired on. But when you have a city that's built all into the walls, as Minas Tirith is, it's good to defend because it's hard to get up in there, but it's also tough to defend because you don't have that. It's just difficult to get the mechanics of things working. I think is how that would be.
Okay.
So, you would probably put catapults on the lower walls or put them on the ground behind the wall. That way they can fire out over it. But you have to carve out a big place for them. So
Yeah.
positives and negatives. Basically Minas Tirith, the first it's got like 7 levels or whatever, and the
Yeah,
first
exactly.
level is taken out. I mean, there's a bunch of
It's on
fire in
fire.
it.
Yeah.
And most of the men do not have the heart to stay there, and so they run. It's against the
Yeah.
law, but
Mhm.
they run anyway, because that's what people will do when everything is on fire. And at the same time, on the inside, at the upper level,
Mhm.
Faramir is on fire internally. He's got a little fever,
Oh, yeah.
probably a big fever, and Denethor is. He says some line about how Sauron did actually find the ring, and so now he's coming in the power of the ring, which is not true, but any excuse to make you feel better, I guess.
Yeah.
And
Well,
unfortunately,
when everything else is falling apart, like that's not much of a reach.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's just I think Denethor thought he was greater than he was, and he thought Minas Tirith was greater than it was. And if Sauron's able to throw fire into the first level of Minas Tirith, he can't just be doing that by himself. He has to have found the ring, or it has to be Gandalf's fault, or it has to be
Yeah.
some other explanation other than himself. But since everything is going to burn, may as well do it before Sauron can do it to you. So Denethor comes up with this wonderful plot
Which
to.
it's like the final desperate clawing of pride
Mhm.
is I'm going to go out on my own terms,
Yeah.
even though it is the most cowardly and arrogant thing you could do.
You technically never lose if you die before the enemy takes your city. Everybody else loses, but you
Well,
weren't there, so
it's
it's fine.
and it's also like the most short-sighted thing.
Yeah.
Also, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've given up. Well, you've given up hope, obviously, right? But hope can extend beyond yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like I may die, but maybe something I can do can help other people.
Yeah.
And Denethor's not thinking about that at all.
No.
Yeah.
No. If he were thinking about other people, that would undermine his entire character. He just doesn't seem to have it in him
Yeah. Well,
for
he'd have
whatever
to admit he
reason.
was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if he was always that way or if something changed and broke him, but from everything we see, that's just kind of how he was, which is
Mhm.
pretty depressing. On the plus side, Denethor releases Pippin like 3 days into his contract, so that's pretty cool. That's what
That's another
Theoden did to
similarity he has
Merry.
with Mary. Yeah.
So they're basically in the
Very,
same situation.
very different context, though.
Yes.
And it's like, I'd like you to live. Denethor says, I couldn't care less.
Yeah. Well, Theoden says, I want to keep you alive. Denethor says, I want to die, so I don't care if you're here or not.
Yeah,
Which is like,
exactly.
whoa. Okay, and Theoden also knows he's probably going to die, but he's going out in the noble way to help save other people, while Denethor is just kind of offing
Yeah.
himself because he
I'm
can.
pointing excitedly at Reagan
He is
because that
very
was cool.
pointed excitedly, very much. Denethor is, as Pippin describes him, fey and dangerous, which is Elven for derogatory in my head. But Pippin decides, since Denethor never technically releases him, I guess, but he says basically, I don't care if you're here or not, which is essentially a release. So what Pippin does next is not breaking the law, because he's no longer a Gondorian citizen. And he basically goes out and says, well, Denethor's just crazy, so all of you people who are trying to assemble a pyre and burn Faramir, don't do that, or at least walk slowly. I'm going to go find Gandalf.
Man.
And try to fix this.
Sometimes it takes leadership failing for other people to step up, you know?
Yep.
But this is the kind of person Pippin was always capable of being, you know? It's like, even when we were reading the Fellowship of the Ring, like, Pippin's obviously really smart and capable. He just doesn't care about that. Yeah. But here, he just jumps into the breach and does a lot of good things really quickly.
Yeah. I don't even think he would classify it as leading.
No, he
I don't think
wouldn't.
that would
No.
spring to his mind. It's just, well, I don't want this guy to die, so I'm gonna try and make sure he doesn't die. But
Yeah.
that ends up in him taking the leadership position and doing a fairly good job at it as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see. Pippin decides to go find Gandalf. Gandalf's actually like on the front line, walking around on the walls, trying to stop things from going too terribly. Denethor's given up, and so he goes to find Gandalf. A couple things happen right here. Number one is there's this big wolf called Grond, a big wolf like battering ram thing that
Yes.
comes up, and there's this huge glorification of it, and then they smash the wall down, or they
Yeah.
smash the door open. So that's pretty cool.
Okay.
That's all I have on it.
Okay. Okay. I got a couple of things before then.
By all means.
Thank you.
We are at an hour and 5 minutes, but
Hey, it's a
there's
long
still
chapter.
stuff. Fair enough.
Too bad. We talked earlier, with Eowyn, technically we just know her as Durnhelm
Yep.
at this point, but Mary sees that expression in her of someone who goes searching for death. Pippin sees an even worse version of this in Denethor. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit. But we talked about like Tolkien would have seen people when he was in World War I who had that expression, surely.
Yeah.
You know? Even though he doesn't like spend a lot of time being like grotesque about it, the things he's describing, like, I don't know, they hit different because he'd seen things like that for me.
Yeah.
It's like the despairing look in people's eyes, or even how he describes people stumbling upon the heads of their friends after the orcs catapult those in. That's just a horrible thing to imagine. He says, and it chanced that someone would see and recognize someone they had known, had walked proudly once in arms, tilled fields with, or ridden in upon a holiday. Yeah. It's people were afraid of hunger earlier. It doesn't matter how long the walls hold if we starve to death here. But really, the reason the siege happened so rapidly is because of despair.
Yeah.
And lack of hope and lack of hopeful leadership. Gandalf's great, but people know he's not a king. And this chapter at this point is showing us desperately that Gondor needs a king.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Gandalf inspires hope in people, but the king is the one who demands their obedience. And so you can be hopeful and still not obey. And that's the problem he runs into. Aragorn is going to be the intersection of hope and obedience, where it's not just like, oh, things can get better, but also you owe me your allegiance and you're going to be part of the solution. Gandalf says things can be better, and Gondor says that's great, and then half the guys run away anyway because things can be better, but I don't have to be on the front line of it. And so there's kind of the disconnect with what Gandalf has. He's great, but he can only do so much.
Yeah. And like practically what you just said is why the enemy is able to do so much in like a day or two, a day and a night.
Yeah.
Is people are abandoning position.
Yeah.
It's like there's some supernatural terror going on too. But if you don't have hope that what you're doing matters, then why would you stand on the wall? Denethor's lack of leadership doesn't have no consequences, just like Theoden's lack of leadership didn't have no consequences. He's setting an example that people are following. They're being little Denethors, running away from their little responsibilities.
Yeah. A tough time.
Yeah.
But that's what Gandalf is there for. So he holds the line as much as possible. And I think that's kind of what Gandalf is known for when everybody says, bad things follow you around. No, Gandalf follows bad things around to help provide the solution for them. Well, this is one of the effects that he's trying to have. Yeah. So when Big Wolf Grond knocks the door in, then Pippin gets there to see that, or at least what comes right after that. The Witch King enters the city. It's not really supposed to happen. Never happened before. No enemy has ever gotten into the gate.
Yeah.
And now you have pretty much, pretty much the greatest enemy Sauron has outside of just straight up himself. This is the greatest. This is the greatest villain Sauron has to offer. Not an enemy to Sauron, but an enemy to everybody else.
Yeah.
The Witch King arrives and he taunts Gandalf because
Yeah.
the Witch King is at the height of his power and nothing can stop him, and he knows that nothing can take him out, and so Gandalf is just kind of sitting there, hurling some a curse at him, as much as that's going to do anything, but it's not going to be effective for the moment. And then there's a horn, and then Rohan's here, and the chapter ends. Bye.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Before we talk about the ending, I have to say some other things.
Sure.
First of all, interesting trivia. Grond, Hammer of the Underworld. Sauron's being nostalgic here. Grond was the name of his master's warhammer.
Okay.
That doesn't matter too much, but it's kind of cool.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So Sauron's aiming up. He's like, look at me. I'm as great as the old guy. He's going to die. But there he had a little battering ram. So
that's pretty cool.
I love just the horrible atmosphere, if that makes sense, of the Witch King's approach.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so telling. Like, the picture is he's trampling callously over the corpses of his slaves and servants.
Yeah.
He has to, because, it's a siege. The orcs and the enslaved and deceived people are going to die a lot more than the defenders.
Mm-hmm.
But it just reminded me, like Gandalf said, he pitied even Sauron's slaves, and here they are. You got terribly messed up orcs, right? You got deceived humans, and they're all being forced to attack this city. And the Witch King, who's also a slave, but the only mercy he can gain now is being destroyed, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He's just extending Sauron's will. Tolkien has some line about that, like everything he said. Yes. So he's just trampling over his own slaves. And he doesn't care about them. Like, for all of Sauron's great plans for bringing order, he doesn't care about life, and he's just spreading chaos and death. It's haunting, kind of cool, I guess, if that makes sense, that the Witch King displays his power. He has a pale sword that bursts into flames. He casts back his hood, and he somehow has a flaming crown, even though he doesn't have a head. It's terrifying to envision.
Yeah.
And Gandalf says, hey, you're going to go to the abyss prepared for you. And the Witch King says, look around. What are you talking about? Everything I see right now says I'm going to win. And then a rooster says, hey, dawn's coming. Watch out.
Well, everybody always looks for the dawn. The whole Helm's Deep thing was solved by Gandalf coming to save Rohan at the dawn, and then the whole Gondor thing is going to be Rohan saving Gandalf at the dawn, and everybody else too.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
Cool idea. Slightly, I guess, maybe you might consider this a controversial opinion. Wouldn't it be better to have cut the last 2 paragraphs of this chapter? To have the Witch King raising his sword, chapter ends, and then we pick up with the Rohirrim and see what they do up until their arrival.
You might be right, but
I think I would prefer that. It doesn't make it better.
Tolkien is too optimistic to do that.
Yeah. There is hope. Rohan couldn't arrive, but Rohan has arrived. So I'm curious to see how that, or what exactly happened with that. But
yeah, this is something which this is also a cut from the movies that makes sense. But pragmatic Aemir in the next chapter is going to be like, man, we're not going to make it. We don't have enough time, or we're blocked. What are we going to do? Theoden just keeps plotting along. He's not very brilliant, but things keep working out for him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
We will keep that for next time. Next time is a short chapter. So if you combine these 2 episodes, maybe it will make two normal length episodes.
It might be about like that, yeah.
But oh well. That's a decent place to cut it off. Anything else on this before?
That is all I have, yeah.
Fair enough. Well, very cool. I would say this is a pretty cool chapter. I like it. Denethor is terrible.
Wonderful. Denethor is terrible.
Yeah. And that's a good place to pause it. So next week we'll be in chapter 5, the Ride of the Rohirrim, and then we get to the really good chapter. Apparently, not next week, but the week after.
Yeah, so it all comes together.
We're still stalling, but we'll get there eventually. It's not my fault. Tolkien did it first. So thank you for listening if you're still here, and we will see you next time.